All right, taking a look at another collection from February 2023. This is going to be the Ambience Fantasy Collection. So, the Ambience Fantasy Collection has 10 Reaper projects with 104 source files, 143 rendered files, and 440 media items total. So, tons of material, covers everything that you could kind of imagine. I hit a lot of the bases for me that I was looking for when I opened it up. Also, quick reminder. So, the IEM plugins, you'll need these to be installed. If for some reason you haven't already, you've been using, the Strata collections up to this point without them, they are necessary for these ambience collections for the ambisonics and among other things. So, what I'll be kind of showing off here a little bit is some heavier usage of the objects projects and blending them in with the ambient beds and kind of going to town and just really creating sort of a interesting immersive atmosphere. I'll be playing around with the lava specifically. I don't know, for whatever reason I just found um, those in particular really engaging, and I had fun kind of trying to make a little environment out of it. So let's get a quick overview of the main project here, get a lay of the land. So this one we have some area tracks, which are sort of outdoor or kind of themed areas, so to speak. I mean, it's kind of self-evident. There's also some drones, so just some sort of kind of tones that kind of hum on. There's some really interesting textures in here that I really enjoyed and kind of made some good use of. There is this one here, which is Interior Academy. And then we have some objects. So, objects, generic, graveyard, lava, things that correspond to the areas specifically and the interiors. All right, so let's get in here to this lava project. Just kind of quickly going over the anatomy of these ambience projects and how these kind of work, because there's a lot of tracks and a lot of folder style tracks. A lot of things that aren't immediately obvious if you're opening this for the first time. Oftentimes you'll find there's two different loops in each of these. So each loop has its kind of top level folder. That underneath of that has several layers. So you got your rumble in here. This one has a bubbles layer, lava, and then there's splash, right? So each of those layers has some plugins associated with it. You can basically alter and change the tone of the rumble low and high, for example. Should notice if I move this density control, it's doing something on this enrage plugin. There's a send that goes out to the reverb. So here you can basically adjust that. So there you can clearly hear there's more reverb on there now. So as we can see, I have stereo is what is currently unmuted. But basically the main mix, there's a send going from right here just below the main mix, goes out to each of these. So you can basically just unmute the one that you want. It'll render out whatever the channel number is for that. I have the ambisonics track unmuted because I'm going to be using it inside of Wise. If you're not actively monitoring it, you don't need to assign it to the parent bus, which is the top composites track there. I used loop 2, so I'll kind of go over, how you might tweak this or kind of some of the logic that I went with while I was playing around. And it didn't take me that long to get something, close to where I wanted to be. So here's this. And of course, these are all seamless loops. So maybe let's address the bubbles a little bit. Let's see. Maybe you want more bubbles. Now, in my case, I ended up with quite a few spot objects. They're kind of burping here and there. So I can probably reduce the quantity of these bubbles a little bit. And maybe because it's kind of a smaller space that clearly has an outside, if I maybe make the bubbles more distant, if anything. Something like that. It's kind of nice. Creates a nice bed. As opposed to this. We can go the opposite, totally close. But I think this is a great example of how much control you have. Something like that's starting to be what I want. All right, so going into the objects lava project over here. Let's see what's in here. There's a lot in here, actually. So these could actually be really cool for some of the elements that I didn't get to add. And then there's these little details over here. So some hisses. And then what are these? These are bubbles. So all just kind of one shots. And then bursts. And there is a distance parameter you can play with, which might be helpful if you're trying to avoid having to do some processing later. So it's, again, some more intuitive EQ automation setup for you, ready to go. So here you can actually see some of the ambient sounds that I placed around here. Now let's listen to these different bubble one-shots. So nothing else playing, just those one-shots that we were just listening to. Of course, spatialized and all that. Cool. So now, here's the bed in there with it. Just really kind of enjoy how they sit together. And let's briefly kind of listen through some more material before we close this one up. So some of the drones. Getting some nice room tone. This interior academy. Academy objects. Writing. Cool. You can see how that would fit in. Slime movement. That's interesting. Sort of distant type of stingers. Some swells. All right, thanks for watching this one. Hope you liked it. If you have any comments or questions about the collections or about any of the features, just let us know. Leave a comment down below and we'll check it out. I'll leave you with the finalized example. You can take another listen to what I was able to put together. Again, I really have to emphasize, I think the ability to put together these environments and the way that, there's just enough content in here to where it's not overwhelming. And yet the way that these strata collections sort of have been organized, you can quickly tweak them. So a lot of hard work went into making it so that these plugins, you have all these ways you can basically change them without having to go in manually. So much more control than I'm ever used to having over most ambient sort of libraries. So really am enjoying this one specifically because if I'm totally honest, ambiences are not my favorite thing to work on generally, but this made it a lot more enjoyable.